All set.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Karen, it's 6:35. First item of business is the adoption of minutes for October 21st, 2020. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
I'll second it, it's Lisa.
Paul made the motion, Lisa seconded. Any additions or corrections? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Chair votes aye, and Tim abstained. So it'll
Correct.
be 3-0, 1 abstention, 1 absent. Okay. Correspondence. You have anything, Joe?
Nothing this month.
Okay. Item 4, accounts payable.
Business as usual. The payment history went out to all the board members a couple weeks ago. As the board members know, we have Boomer, our fee accountant, that double checks from our bookkeeper, Cheryl, of all the payments that are being paid to our vendors. So Boomer overlooks at it, and then Josh and myself also overlooks it and signs a check. So we have triplet eyes on the vendor payments. So business as usual.
Anybody have any questions? Nothing? Okay, we'll move on to item 5, the executive report. A, the financial statements for October 2020.
Yes, thank you. So basically, with Boomer's assistance on as doing the fee account, this one is basically up from our September 2020 final closings. So he has made his 7 or 8 notes that he's made. So AMP1, very healthy gain for the year. AMP2 did a nice little gain. So basically, for our fiscal year of October 1, 2019 through September 30th of 2020, the Housing Authority had a nice gain for the year. So I'm very proud of, how we spend our money and how we collect money and make sure that we have a gain. We got Boomer on here, so I don't know if you have any questions or if Boomer wants to elaborate a little bit more. But I'm very proud of what's happening. And as we speak, today was the beginning of our Mike Petro from Nair McCain Associates to start doing our unaudited financials for that same time period. So Boomer, anything else you'd like to add to the financials?
A couple of things. One, am I on? I forgot to look. Yeah. I guess.
You're on.
Yeah, you're on.
You're on.
The overall year, as you said, Joe, was very good. We continue to make our budgets to a point that we certainly hope we will not ever show a loss because we have enough income coming in. The COVID income did help in some of the programs because we haven't spent all the money, so that shows us income and expenses we haven't done. But that's only with the Housing Choice Voucher Program because we've drawn the money down in the federal programs as we've used it. So that's kind of a push. But of course, there's more income there because of that. The state program, that's the CERT program, we call it, did show a loss for the year when it was done. That's not a real panic because that program has been making money for several years in a row. And one of the things we have done on that, we started a couple of years ago actually using money from that program to give to the COCC like other programs. So once we put that entry in, it showed a loss at the end of the year, but it's not significant. Couple of things I did mention about having to change how I do surplus and stuff like that, and mostly it's because of the OPEB or pension liabilities and depreciation are areas that actually help, don't hurt us as far as surplus goes, but do hurt us when it comes to using the retained earnings. And I'm going to take that up with the auditors and stuff like that to see what the best way to present that to you is. Because I don't want to be putting a negative retained earnings in there because we have, $600,000 in pension liabilities. You know what I mean? Because it's not a real liability until we actually has to come out of our pocket. So, and we've talked about that in the past as well with when Jason was at the meeting. One more point, we are moving into the new accounting system now, and I'll be looking at maybe ways to change the presentation to you a little bit from those statements. But I don't see much change coming from that. So that's about it.
Chairman,
Tim,
just a clarification. AMP1 is Mayfair Gardens and the scattered sites, and AMP2 is the other federal program. Is that correct?
That's correct, but the scattered sites are actually split between 1 and 2.
They are split. Okay. Is there any-
Somehow way back before my time, Mr. Becker, when HUD broke up the amps, I believe it was probably under Patrick's time frame. That's how HUD had broke it up, in which does not make sense, having some of the scatter sites under AMP1 and some under scatter site under AMP2.
Is it based on their zip code? 640 and 642?
I don't believe so. I think somehow when they broke it up.
Okay, it's more random.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks. That's all.
Yep.
That was a little confusing when we set up the new computer system because
Yeah.
the old system had scattered site 1, scattered sites 2, Partridge Meadows,
Yep.
and a few other things in there. So we had to make sure they were all in the right amps when we get it moving forward again. So.
any other questions on the financial statements? If not, we're going to move on to item B, the vacancy reports.
Yes, because we're in the computer upgrade, just having a little trouble downloading it, but just to give you an insight, basically we are doing fine. I know last month or when we had the latest reports, as you know, there was a couple units, two of the units at Mayfair Gardens and one of the units at Westhill Gardens had over 200 days. And the reason why they were over 200 days is when we put in a request to HUD to take these units offline, we got their approval, but we can't go into the computer system to take them offline because when we got the RAD chat letter in the VMS or in the PIC system, basically all our units are taken offline. So now Steve and I cannot go in there and make any changes. This has to come from HUD. But to let everyone know, we finally got these 3 units all leased up. So there's nothing over 200 days. We have approximately 6 units right now that's under rehab and should be getting leased up shortly. So overall, our utilization for the vacancies, I believe was 6 units right now. So, kudos to, our maintenance guys trying to get everything situated, but still at the same time, it's still taking us a little bit extra long to lease up units because individuals are afraid to move during this COVID crisis. In which HUD, we're a lot of executive directors. I'm on the phone as your Conero president, and we're talking about these. So HUD understands the agony of not getting these units leased up in an efficient time. So they're really not going to be holding us to the 14 and 21 days that we've had, but we still are doing our due diligently, going through the wait list and trying to get the people into these units. So I gotta say, overall, for us, we're in good shape in regards to not losing money or getting any violations from the field office because of the COVID-19.
Any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to item C, general information.
Well,
First is the update to the West Hill congregate.
very proud.
Good news.
Good news. Finally, after a long, as I think all the board knows, for a past year of agony that I've had, threatening per se in regards to the ongoing battle to get our congregate facility completed. I'm proud to say that finally work has been beginning. I've sent some pictures. So I know Mr. Becker was up there over a month ago, and the sidewalk was not completed. And there was a disarray with our falling orange lattice per se to keep people away. But I'm very proud to say that finally the walkway is completed. Driveway's been totally repaved. And as I speak, the canopy is working on. As long as the weather is cooperating with us, to me, because I do go up there on the days I'm in the office, the canopy is being well done. And if weather cooperates, this whole project should be done by December 15th. So less than 3 weeks. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because even if as long as it doesn't rain and all stuff, the canopy can be completed. So hopefully there's no rain or snow that comes, but the cold weather, these individuals could complete the canopy. So I'm very happy finally of what's going on. It's been a long battle with Northeast Builders, but I'm very happy to say that the work is back on and hopefully to be completed by next month. So hopefully by our next board meeting, I can say everything's complete, have more pictures, and say it's been a long battle and finally one facility completed while the other one's being worked on as we speak.
It's great news, Joe. I mean, I've driven by there several times, and I'd urge any board members who have idle time and you're in the neighborhood, just drive through and go do a lap through the parking lot. The curb appeal is great. I mean, it's still a little bit of work going on. There was the subcontractor was there today working on the canopy. It looks like they have a little bit more finish work to do, but it's coming along. But just doing the driveway in and of itself, just really, it looks great.
Oh, with that new driveway, it definitely looks unbelievable. So
Yeah.
It was kudos.
Yeah, so it's been a frustrating period of the last year. I mean, we should have been done this time last year,
Yep.
but you know,
It is what
all's
it-
well that ends well, I guess. But
yes.
does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Tim?
just as far as the punch list, how is that looking? I mean, you get a completion and then there's always some kind of punch list to
Yeah, so
finalize.
so once they're completed with the canopy, our Quisenberry and Arcari, our architects, the individual from them would do their punch list to make sure it's all done. CHFA has their person, their field observer that will come out and do their punch list. So before anything is finalized, you know, those two entities are our architect and CHFA's field observer has to give its blessing. And once that's all done, then the Northeast Builders will, you know, be completed, and then they can get their retainage money that's due to them.
How much is being held back for the last payment?
It's 5%, so it's basically about, I want to say it's roughly about $300,000.
would think they'd want to get that.
But I would say yes.
Yeah.
But, you
Yeah,
know,
take a ride up there, though. You'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I did visit during the election cycle to visit Karen and bring some absentee ballot applications, and that's when I sent some pictures to you, Joe, saying, when is this going to be ended? You know?
And that was a frustration, Tim, as you know, the hard work that I had to do along with our architect and our attorneys and everything else. So it was very frustrating. As you know, that's why I've always kept the board in loop every month of what was going on. And, you know, as you know, even with Paul, was that, you know, the last thing I wanted to do was pull that bond, and knowing that that could have been a crisis of pulling the bonds and more legal fees and everything else.
Right.
So, you know, I think, you know, they definitely wanted to finish the job, and they finally realized it. But, you know, I think they were trying to hold me really tight, but it was vice versa because I had the upper hand. But it was just frustrating that it had to go another 7-8 months or almost over a year's time that we had to play around with this. And it was very, very frustrating to myself, to the board, and to the residents up at West Hill Gardens. But now I can, you know, almost, you know, say thank God, and it worked out.
Appreciate your persistence. Basically, when it's all complete, it'll almost be 1 year behind schedule, right? Correct?
A year and a half, because it should have been completed by, well, yeah, it should have been
August.
completed September of 2019 should have been when it
Wow.
should have been completed.
Yeah.
And
But
that's why I
it's-
say at times, you know, when you have these contracts, even with CHFA, that, you know, you sign these agreements for 1 year, look, it ended up being 2 years, 27, 28 months. So is that contract really worth anything of a weight of gold? Yes and no. In this case, no. And I've been seeing the hold up with other projects throughout the state of Connecticut too. So, and now with the COVID, it even made it worse. So,
Nice work getting it done.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Maybe someday we'll have a ribbon cutting there, but not
Would
in
be
this
great.
environment.
That
Yeah.
would be nice.
And we won't invite the contractor either. Anyway, anyone else have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 2, the update to Spencer Village, which is off to a
Yes.
good start.
So good news, you know, we're in month number 2 per se. You know, we signed the contract back on September 19th. So you can say it's 2 months. I'm very proud to say that all the buildings have been completed with the roofing job. We just started moving building 48 residents. We've moved them into to the adjacent hotel, the Hawthorne Inn, and a couple of tenants have moved into Spencer Village too. As of today, this week, Monday, that's when the contract started to abate those 6 units. The interior is starting to work. We did have a little hiccup last month, you know, after when we signed the contract, because of COVID-19, the appliances and cabinets, based on the vendors, they were 8 to 9 weeks out. So we are hoping that after the whole abatement that the windows and cabinets and will be in within the next month or so. We're hoping that building 48 will be completed by the end of December, if all goes well. And hopefully there will be no hiccups on that. But I'm very proud to say that Pioneer Builders, they have been working on the roofs Monday through Saturday. They were even working on the weekends. Roof looks tremendous. Marianne has been following up with the individuals at the Hawthorne Inn just to see how they're doing. And our residents are doing very well over there. So, we just want to keep an eye on them and that they're okay during this process. It's been long overdue, and these are very unique individuals, and they're just very happy to see work is finally being done. As well, Judy's not on, but as Josh would know, the times that we've had our meetings out there, it's been a few years, as you know. We've been awarded, then it then didn't go through the bond commission, so it was another layup of over a year's time. The residents over there, the ones that have been there from day one, thought that I was a liar, that the housing authority was not going to be doing any renovations, and with Josh and I speaking with them, saying it's all the red tape through the state of Connecticut, but finally things are going well. DeMarco Management, they've taken over the responsibilities. But I have our maintenance staff training their maintenance staff and letting them know all the ins and outs of all the different buildings per se. So, and if there's any nighttime calls, if there's any problems, I've instructed David, our foreman, to whoever is on call, just to assist for the next couple of months, because the buildings is still ours, just the management is being done by DeMarco. So I think it's going to be very well. So there was a little hiccups in the beginning of the month, but but we're getting all those straightened out, and I think it's going to work out. So there's always going to be kinks in the beginning. So hopefully within the next month or two, all those little kinks will be taken care of and everything else.
I had heard that there's a severe shortage of appliances because of COVID, with the whole supply chain, because so many appliances are manufactured overseas, or components of them are, and it's a supply chain issue that got delayed.
Yeah. So basically the cabinets, because of all the wood, it's all coming from Canada. So that was the hiccups of the lumber and everything else. But they're going to do their best, and hopefully the material is going to be coming here. One good thing that Pioneer Builders is doing, in which it's appreciative, but it's money taken out of their pockets, that they're getting shipments of everything that's coming in and storing them into. So if you go to Spencer Village, we have these big containers, storage containers. So what's happening is, because CHFA will not pay in advance, so Pioneer Builders is going to be coming up with $500,000 per se. I'm just using that number. It could be even more for the windows and cabinets. So they're looking for one shipment, all these windows, all these cabinets, everything coming in. So it's going to be all stored. CHFA will not pay them until they're stored into the apartments, until the units are they're in the apartments, and the CHFA observer, our punch list is done. So Pioneer Builders, one thing is up in the money per se. And hopefully, they're going to be keeping an eye on the storage containers, so the storage can no break-ins, because if anything happens, it's on their dime. But it's a company, I would say they're probably backed by significant money, which they can upfront that money, upfront that cost. But I've been in talks with CHFA because of COVID to see if these are one of the things that myself and other colleagues, architects and business partners, we've had meetings with CHFA to talk about, see if they can change their way of doing business because of COVID, because you're affecting these big businesses that have to upfront this money, and because you just don't know what's going to happen with COVID. So like right now, if our contractor only got half of the supplies, and then was ready to order more supplies, those supplies may not be, and it could delay the project. So one good thing that Pioneer Builders is doing is they're getting all the windows. You're talking about 360 windows that are coming in, doors, and everything else. So they're up in the money. So
Well, that's encouraging that they at least have the financial resources, unlike our other contractor at the Congregate who was living hand to mouth. So
yes,
I would take that as a positive.
yes.
Okay, anybody have any questions on Spencer Village?
Josh,
Tim?
will the housing authority receive any type of positive cash flow from this project now that we basically turned it over to a third party?
We should.
Like we do with our other operations.
We should, because when Lou Tredchesky, who was hired by CHFA to help us do the tax credits, we should, but probably not in the beginning, because we have to pay off these loans and everything. So we're hoping that a little bit down the road, yes, there will be some cash flows. We're hoping that also in the beginning, because until the 1 year is up and we get these project-based vouchers, now we're gonna have 3-tier rents in there. I believe the rents were gonna be $460, $510, and then the project-based vouchers, the 25 vouchers that we're gonna have in there, the rents are gonna be $1,010. So you're gonna have the splits of all these different financials, and to offset, payments to DeMarco for managing the property, paying the loans, and hopefully there won't be as many repairs since we are making the necessary improvements. But one of the things, as you may recall, is when we were working on the initial project, we originally had in there over $4 million of renovations. And then when CHFA had come back to us and wanted us to do a little bit better leveraging, we had to cut the things down. So we had to take some things out of our proposal, in which I'm going to bite my tongue. But, there were things that I disagreed, and same thing that John Demilier, our consultant, was not in agreement, but that we were told by the former administration of CHFA, if we didn't do a tax credit, this deal was never going to happen, as you may recall. So because of that, there were some things that we had to take off. I'm hoping that after some of this major renovations, that there will be another SSHP grants that I can possibly apply for and try to get the remaining things. It would have been nice if we were able to do it all in the beginning. As you know, my vision, first of all, in the beginning was unfortunately to knock all the units down and build a 2-3-story building, which would have been much cheaper than renovating all 80 units. That was my vision. It would have been a home run, and we could have added more units because of all the additional land that we have. But my back was up against the wall with John D'Amelia, which I got to give him credit. Him and I both fought hard, but the old administration won the battle for now.
Are we talking about maybe 4 to 5 years out before we can see some kind of positive cash flow to the housing authority?
I would say yes. I don't know if Boomer would, think differently, but I would say at least that. I may be wrong, Tim. I guess it's all going to depend on, what expenses we may occur from any work orders and everything else. But, I think with the cash flow, if we have all the units at the 80 units leased up, I think we would see some cash flow coming in. I would not anticipate the first year, maybe by year 2 or 3.
You think the 25 is going to be the max for the vouchers available to that?
Yeah, because that was part of the thing. So because of how many units, we can only do 25% of the unit.
Okay. Okay,
That's where I got the maximum 25, and that's when at first HUD had given me a hard time, in which John and I went to HUD and says, this is the rules and regulations. Because they were totally against at first of us putting vouchers in there. They're like, you can't project base a state development with federal funds. And we were like, oh, yes, we can. So after with all the evidence and showing them, HUD, then back down and says, okay, you can do it and blah, blah, blah. And that's why the max we could do is 25. So,
but that's the only thing that makes that project viable, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I think it's important to look at the project from CHFA and Department of Housing's perspective, is that they were concerned going back 5-6 years about the economic vitality of Spencer Village. It was on a model that could not sustain itself. And, in order for them to sign off, we had to play by their rules, unfortunately. I mean, in the best case scenario, we would have gotten what Glastonbury got, but for their state project, but we didn't. And we're making the best of the cards that were dealt to us. So yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice that there'd be positive cash flow. I think importantly though, we're not gonna have negative cash flow, and we would have, not be able to provide affordable housing for a lot of folks.
Right.
'Cause, I mean, realistically, there were some pretty dire predictions of what could happen if we didn't kind of take this course. So
Well, in a real perfect scenario, the state would have continued to give us rental subsidy
yeah,
and supplied us capital money for the improvements.
right.
But they basically did not live up to their responsibilities.
Yeah.
So this was the best they could do, I guess.
The best I
Yeah,
could
every few weeks I drive by Center Village and Glastonbury and get a little jealous, but that's,
Well, you're not gonna have
I'll get over
lowbrow subsidized housing in Glastonbury.
yeah.
They just wouldn't have it.
No. Okay, anything else in Spencer Village? If not, we'll move to item 3, the RAD update.
Yes, I just wanted to let the board know, Nathan and I are still working hand in hand in regards to our RAD deal. One of the things was that Nathan and I have had numerous discussions with Siemens, because this is the last holdup per se, because of the liability. So we had approached Siemens to say, here's our proposition based upon the solar field that we have. Nathan and his team did a tremendous job. We presented it to Siemens, and when we had a conference call with Siemens, hold to behold, they didn't even look at the proposition that we had, because they came back to me and says, well, Joe, if you want us to do anything, we're willing to do it, but it would cost you anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. And Nathan and I are like, well, we've done all the work. We're just asking for your blessing because of the RAD conversion. And after the probably a 45-minute conversation, they finally realized that nobody was talking to one another at Siemens. So I asked them to please take a look at it, and if we could have a phone call 2 weeks later, and everything else. 2 weeks goes by, did not hear from them. Nathan and I reached out to Siemens, and same thing. I was speaking to our rep and asked her. I said her name was Lisa, so I'm not Lisa O'Neill. So I was going after our Lisa at Siemens and saying, Lisa, has your team taken a look at what we have? And she basically says, well, Joe, we have, but if you want us to do anything, it's going to cost you $10,000 to $15,000, or you could go through a former employee whose name is Rich Carroll, in which he could probably do it for $10,000. I'm scratching my head. I'm like, okay, am I not speaking English or am I speaking French or Japanese? And I'm like, we've did all the work. We're just asking to say, can we get your blessing? Make a long story short, they finally looked at it and they kind of said yes. And I'm like, okay, we just need your blessing. So Nathan and I decided, you know what, we should have a phone call with the HUD officials from Hartford. We had a talk with them last week, and that's why we had the conversation with them on the 12th. That's why I followed up with the letter to them on the 13th, in which I sent to all the board members, explaining what we wanted to do. Talking with the HUD officials, they believe what we talked about would work, but they wanted to talk to the EPC consultants out of Washington, D.C. So as of right now, a week has gone by, and I've just not heard back from the HUD field office to see what their response is. I'm hoping, we believe that they're going to accept this. I will be following up with the HUD field office probably not tomorrow, but probably one day next week before Thanksgiving to see if they've taken a look at this or have spoken to anybody in Washington, D.C. And this is the last step. If this is approved, then Nathan would, we would come back to the board and give you the final or an up-to-date synopsis for the board to review. And if it's something that you accept, we can go forward. Or if it's something that you don't accept, we go back to square one. So that's why I put on the items for future agenda that Nathan Bonder would be on our next board meeting, even if we have not heard anything from HUD, but just to give you a synopsis of what's going on with our RAD conversion.
Okay. Any questions? Tim?
Just to clarify, the energy performance contract is basically entails a loan. Is the plan to pay the loan off prior to going with the RAD conversion, correct? Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yeah, that is correct. And with paying off that loan, because what it is it's the incentives that's tied to it because of how RAD's got their streamlined voluntary conversion. We have to get the units under 250 units. So we are looking to streamline the scattered sites, and to get under the 250 because of Mayfair and West Hill Gardens, we're looking to take 28 units from West Hill Gardens. So that will drop us down to 250, under the 250. So we can do our streamlined conversion and voluntary conversion, and that will give us more money to play with or to get back into the housing authority. So we have this plan in place, but we just need HUD's approval. And that's why Siemens, we could pay it off, but we just needed them to okay of us doing that conversion. So the incentives are still in play.
Okay, and just a second question. Has the whole issue of the pension liability as it relates to the RAD conversion been resolved?
Well, it's always going to be on the books, as Boomer and Jason has said.
Right.
HUD really hasn't come back to say we still need to put $1 million or $2 million on the side. What they originally wanted us to put was $2 million on the side, in which we said there's no way we can put $2 million on the side. So we're still working with that, but we believe that because of the gap accounting, and as you know, Jason and Boomer has mentioned, that's always going to be a liability. So how will a housing authority put $2 million? And that's why basically with the reserves and all that stuff should carry that liability pension. Um,
Is HUD willing to kind of set that aside and, you know, not kind of waive their concerns over it so we can move forward?
that's why we think that this is the last straw. Once we can get Siemens to accept this, then it's full force ahead. And like I said, we present it to the board, and if the board agrees to it, we go forward. If the board doesn't agree with it, then we do something else.
Oh, sounds like we got the, you know, the ball's on the 10-yard line and we got
It's-
plenty of time.
Fine, getting closer to, it's fine getting there. It's, it's been, as you know, it's been a struggle between the RAD conversion, Spencer Village, and the congregate. It's been phenomenal going back and forth and everything else. And then on top of it, you get COVID, and I'm trying to keep all the residents safe. So, but you're right. We're probably right at that 10-yard line, ready going for the touchdown. So it's looking very good.
Sounds good, Joe. Thanks.
No, you're welcome.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to item 4, which is our tentative 2021 public comment dates.
Yeah, as you know, Josh and I, and usually Judy, but any commissioner, we can only have 2 commissioners at this. Even though we don't know what's going to happen next year, but under our bylaws, we have to have the public comments. Well, so I basically just put these dates in there for Josh and I, but the caveat will be is that I will just make the caveat saying that these public hearings is going to be on hold until further notice, until COVID ends or we're able to meet back in a public space. But I figured I just wanted to put the proposed dates, and then adopt them for next month. So I just an FYI in regards to this. So I just wanted to give you an FYI on these dates.
Right. Our rules of procedure require that, we have public comments, but obviously COVID kind of trumped that. So, I'm willing to go out when it's safe to do so. And I'm more concerned about the residents than I am for myself or Joe. And, unfortunately, I don't think enough of our residents have the technology necessarily that we could do something virtually.
Right.
Because that would be something worth exploring, but I don't, frankly, I mean, maybe we could do a phone type thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Josh, and it would be tough, unless if I do something with the community room. You know what? I just thought about because I did take Spencer Village, because on that proposal I took out Spencer Village because there will be no public hearing with Spencer Village because it's under the management of DeMarco. So between the Congregate, Mayfair Gardens, and West Hill Gardens, that's where the public comments would be taking place.
Particularly maybe in the warmer weather next, say next May, assuming there's a vaccine, maybe we could do something outside, something like that. I think that, I'm certainly willing to do it. So, I think we can adopt a schedule next month, and then we'll play it by ear where we stand.
Absolutely.
Okay. Which leads us into item 5, which is the tentative schedule, which will be adopted next month for the Board of Commissioner meetings. Everybody should check the dates prior to adoption. If there's any concerns, let Joe know. I already identified one. Selfishly, June 16th doesn't work for me because that's the date for the 25th and final Mayor's Program golf tournament. And we always seem to have a meeting that day and I blow it off, but I kind of I have to work that thing. I do a lot of behind the scenes work on that. So it's like, at this point, I'd rather change the date either another day that week or push it back or move it up a week.
If
Either
June,
way, it'd be fine with me.
if June 23rd, we can move it back a week because at least that'll be a month. So if June 23rd works.
Well, sometimes those were like narrow conflicts too.
Right.
Um,
Let me just see what's on June 23rd. Do I have anything?
Well, we can perhaps come up with a tentative date before next month, but I just want to put that one out there. Paul, you may want to double check all the religious holidays too, to make sure we haven't,
I will do that.
yeah.
I tried my best, Paul, so I'm hoping I got everything, but I could possibly miss something.
So if anybody else has a conflict, Karen won't miss any UConn basketball, at least on the front end this year. Sorry, Karen. Because no one can go to any games, as it appears. So we'll be prepared to have a resolution to adopt the meeting dates so we can submit those to the town clerk.
Yep.
So if anybody sees any concerns on that list, let Joe know.
Please, thank
Okay.
you.
So item 6 is the list of observed holidays for employees.
I think we lost Karen for a minute.
Yeah, all of a sudden it went dead.
Uh-oh, you didn't miss anything.
Okay.
We were just talking, we will adopt the meeting dates schedule in December. I don't know if you heard, I had a potential conflict for June 16th, so,
Yeah, because of a golf thing.
yeah, important stuff.
Is that the final, due to be
Yeah.
the final one?
The 25th and final was supposed to be this year, but we pushed it back a year. So it was going to be the previous week, and I told Casano that's like the last day of the legislative session, so he didn't realize that, so they had to push it back to the 16th. So regardless, so we'll figure out a solution to that, but I'd rather let you know now, so. Because I fear I'm going to be running most of that. So that's why I have to be there. Okay. So we've gone through, item 6, the holidays, which are the typical holidays.
I just wanted to give you a list of 2021 observed holidays, the days that the office would be closed because of the holiday. So just an FYI to the board in regards to the observed holidays that the Housing Authority would be observing.
Okay. Comments? If not. Item 7, Board of Commissioners, the Vice Chair's term was going to expire, but he got reappointed last week. He may not even know it yet, but he did. So
Yeah, I-
congratulations, Paul.
I got a call from Mr. Pohl who asked me to if I was interested in staying on in terms of my position. I told him absolutely, as long as there wasn't going to be any manual recounts.
Well,
But
congratulations.
there was Chads in there, Paul.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't use Dominion machines, did you?
Yeah, yeah. So you're re-up for 5 years. So
Very good. Congratulations.
congrats. Item 8, the COVID-19 expenditures.
Yep, just as a report that Mr. Becker has asked. So here's a running list of the COVID expenses that we had broken down thus far that we spent. So we spent roughly $112,000 or close to $113,000, which broken down into the amps and where we spent this money. So we still have quite a bit of money, but one of the good things was that when the COVID money came out first, HUD had stated that we had to use this money by December 31st of 2020. Now they've extended it through December 31st, 2021. I'm still having, we are still doing things. And if anything else pops up that we need, at least it gives us some clear picture that we don't miss and everything else. So we've done some major renovations through inside the office. I just last month we have finished the air filtration inside of our building. I am getting a quote for an air filtration at the congregate facility. My things first, and I'm sure with the board, is the safety of all of our employees of MHA. Mask wearing at all times when you're, especially when you're in your cube. I mean, when you're outside of your office or cubicle, to make sure you have your masks. We have hand sanitizers all over the place. Every Saturday, our maintenance, whoever's on call, comes into our office and does a fine mist spray in our office, up at the congregate, and in all the common areas in our 2-family units. I still, as you can see now with the COVID going up and up and up, I've instructed Dave to just keep on buying supplies, because who knows if these supplies are going to be out of reach again, like it was in the beginning of the year. I'd rather have as many masks, as many hand sanitizers, whatever it may be. Let's, get it. Right now, we are in the midst of a computer upgrade. We do, so now we have purchased workstations, laptops for all the employees. So in case if anything happens, they will be able to bring laptops home with them and everything else. So we've done a lot of integrate work. So if it's just not even with COVID, but even in the winter time per se, if anything happens, next year, whatever, during the winter time, at least the employees could work from home, bring the laptops home, and they won't miss a beat, and so forth. So, we're doing, I've always taken suggestions from my colleagues, staff, and what we can possibly do. One good thing is I think internally in our office, we're very good space-wise and everything else. But, I'm just, I just don't want to go back to step one if we don't have to. But thus far, I got to say it's been working very well. I know we have Karen on the phone. But with the drop boxes, doing things by email, mail, it's been working very well with the individuals that we serve. There are times when we have a little hiccups in our stuff from tenants and whatever, but it's crazy. But overall, I'm very happy that, thank God, fingers crossed, I hope I don't jinx myself, there's been no cases of any COVID from our employees or residents that I know of. So, it's kudos and just to getting the word out. When I'm walking to properties and all stuff, I see individuals, I praise them, just to keep their mindset. Same thing when we do see a little issues. I'm happy that our men and women from the Manchester Police Department is doing more of a drive-bys to our properties, just to try to reiterate the COVID issues and all that stuff. So now winter's upon us. I know it's going to be very tough, especially for my congregate facility and everybody else, that they won't be able to be outside. I probably will you utilize something and try to do something to give back to the residents per se, just to say thank you. And unfortunately, that I don't want to use the word lock up. You're locked up in your apartments, but maybe do something for Christmas or whatever. Maybe getting some gift certificates. I know, like I had gotten a $30 gift cards from the state. But these individuals have gone through a lot and been through a lot, and especially if they're not able to see family or friends, and they've been kind of locked up or cooped up in their apartments.
Any questions, Tim?
Just a question, why am I seeing on this COVID report, Section 8 wages?
So one of the things is because of the COVID money, the Section 8 program got so much money in regards to it. So the easiest thing to do was to utilize the wages from our two ladies. So it makes us able to utilize the money from HUD, in which we don't want to lose it. A lot of money from the HCV was to offset the rise in the HAP payments. But fortunately, with the individuals on our Section 8 program, there was not a lot of rent changes that affected. A lot of people did not lose their income and so forth. So one of the things with the COVID, instead of losing that money, we figured we could use that towards the wages of our employees.
Is that allowable use for COVID-specific money?
Yes, it is.
Yes?
Yep.
Because I see a lot of, hand sanitizer and gloves and things that you would normally expect to see. And then the wages just, don't we get an admin fee that the wages come out of?
Yeah, Boomer.
I think maybe Tim would like to see the thing that we had last week from the training we had that actually explained all the eligible expenses and what we're supposed to do with it. And this is definitely right in the middle of it. There was a page that said you may use it for any of your salaries in the program. So, but maybe
Okay,
forward
as
that.
long as HUD blesses it, that's good enough for me.
Yeah. And of course, one of the things, Tim, is HUD, the Office of Inspector Generals, all this COVID money, it's going to be, they are going to go through housing authority by housing authority to look at all these expenses. And one of the good things too is that we have Mike Petro from Nair McKay that started today. So they're going to be looking at all these line items and everything else that we're utilizing from the COVID money because we need to track it so they're looking at all this. So with Cheryl, there's been numerous meetings that Cheryl, Boomer, myself have been going through these COVID-19 trainings from HUD in regards to these expenses. And, I can get you that PowerPoint presentation from Mike Petro that he did, as Boomer had stated last week. I can email that PowerPoint presentation to all the board members so you can see what's allowable and what's not allowable.
That'd be great. I'd like to see that. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, move to item 9, the Hillstown Road report.
As Commissioner Becker had asked, we now have given you the Hillstown Road report, as you can see, because it's the new fiscal year, October 2020. Right now, there is an ending balance in our account of $19,603 that we have on our books for Hillstown Road. And, on a quarterly basis, we do send a check for any amounts that is in excess of from rents minus our expenses, that a check will go out to the town every 3 months that Cheryl does on a quarterly basis.
Is there any encumbrance on these funds?
No. So basically, this is the money that we have on hand. So in case if we have to make some repairs, we can utilize. So at least we know that we have $19,000 on hand. But, you know, one of the things was that years ago, or when I originally had that meeting, I want to say about 5 years ago with Tim O'Neill and Scott Shanley, you know, one of the things was that if there was going to be any expenses over $5,000, we kind of wanted to get the town's approval on that. So anything that's small, you know, my protocol is that we'll send it to the town saying, hey, this is what's wrong. Can we go ahead and do it? Because as you know, we still haven't got a word of what their idea is in regards to selling that property or taking back that property. But, you know, it's one property, you know, maintenance just basically will go there. We need it. And, you know, we do get a small admin fee, but it's, I would say it's nothing towards it. But until we find out what the town wants to do with that property, I don't see an issue of holding on to it right now unless if something major, you know, we know. I would love to, you know, get a capital needs assessment done on there or have the town do a capital needs assessment on that property. But, you know, it shouldn't come out of our dime. That should come out of their dime on what they want to do. And, you know, yesterday, when I was on the housing commission through the town of Manchester, apparently they did sell that vacant lot, and it sounds like they sold this vacant lot to Carl Zinser. So I don't know what they're planning on doing with that. But, you know, through the little synopsis, they said that Carl Zinser and his group, Orford Village, they've been keeping up with their proposal. Apparently all the roofs have been done and they put up a new sign out front. They called it a different name of the village. I think it was under the individual who passed away, who gave the land, Crockett, I think they call it Crockett's landing or something like that. So I haven't drove by that facility since you know, it's been sold. So I don't know if anyone else has driven by there to see it, but to me, it looks like they've done what they've done. They sound like they changed all the heating into gas and put all new roofs on there. So kudos.
Does the tenant provide the lawn maintenance and snow removal on his property, or do we do that?
We don't doing
At Hillstown? No, just building repairs?
Yep.
Yes. I think we're doing the town a favor, but they don't seem to have any interest in taking this over. So it's, I guess, in our interest is to continue.
Well, I guess to continue, and as you know, and my concern is if something major happens, you know, I just don't, you know, I've always gone on record, as you know, that if something major happens, you know, we've been asking them what they want to do, and, you know, it should not come back after the housing authority, that it's negligent on our part. You know, as you know, I don't want to see our name plastered all over the front page of a newspaper saying this is the property of the housing authority.
Do we need to maybe send a letter saying we have concerns about the infrastructure, or are there any unmet needs as far as maintaining this property? I mean, like things like roofs or major systems, okay over there?
I leave that up to the board for me.
I know, I'm just asking the question because, again, if something bad happens there and we're the property managers, perception is that we're negligent in our duties. Just similar to the one that Carl Zinser's group is managing now.
As you know, I know you've spoken to the town. I know Josh has spoken to individuals there. You know, I look to the board on what you would like me to do on this, or, you know, how do you want to proceed in regards to this?
Hey, Josh,
Lisa,
Yeah, so again, I say it over and over and over. This is cemetery property. So, in the end, that house is going to be torn down and it's going to be used for cemetery. So it's not to the town's best interest or anybody's best interest to spend a lot of money over there. So
Yeah.
it's kind
It's
of
gonna be a
just
long
status
time before
quo.
it's gonna be a long time before that cemetery land.
Right, so it's kind of status quo until it's, till somebody has to make a decision, and we'll let the town make the decision then.
Yeah, it may be worth seeing if we can engage them in a conversation to see if we can maybe have a sit down just to discuss the capital needs of this property so that we could maybe reach an understanding that, yeah, in 2 years it needs a new roof or needs a new driveway and maybe that type of thing, because there really has been no significant investment into
Yeah,
that property
I think-
whatsoever.
I think the goal, when I was on the board, was just,
To run it into the ground.
well, just run it until it runs its course, and then it gets torn down and it's turned into cemetery.
Well, meanwhile, you have someone living there.
Who's a town employee, and then, so the
No,
town
it's
is well
fine,
aware
but
of
I'm
it.
just saying, if the infrastructure gets to the point where it's not habitable or safe,
Then they'll do some some fire department drills on it, and it'll be done. So, and that's kind of been the talking on it all the while I was on the board. So I think we spent enough time on it. If you want to put a formal letter to put a nail in the coffin, I'm fine, but that's the intent.
I guess the
Yeah.
question is the housing authority going to be held harmless?
Why? Yeah,
If there's-
why?
If there's major deficiencies in this infrastructure of this property.
So
Do
if
we
you
have
wanna put
anything in writing that says,
well, go ahead and put a
Um,
letter, you can put a letter to that effect if you want, and just get them to say, yeah, okay. And be done with it. I think we wasted enough time, all these meetings, talking about one individual house with one individual town employee renting it. Honestly,
Yeah, I mean, the house actually has a fairly large assessment last time I checked too. It's not, I mean, the thing was built in the 80s, which makes it a hell of a lot newer than my house. And
well, new isn't always good either, Josh, right?
no, I know. Well,
no, but if you neglect the property for 20 or 30 years,
yeah, no,
So
true.
let's
it becomes a health hazard.
So let's make a motion, put a letter together, and let's just put a fork in this one and be done with it.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
No, I don't know that we need a motion to advise, maybe Joe and I can compose some letter to Mr. Shanley
Okay.
to see if we can maybe just get a face-to-face that, because they've been just kicking the can down the road for like 3
Yeah,
years.
same thing with North Elm. It was the same
Yeah.
thing. They wouldn't do anything, so. And
Yeah,
it wasn't, it was a majority of the board, so, what can you do?
I
So I would
talked
just-
to Mr. Shanley personally about it, and
He won't do
Yeah.
anything personally,
he act-
Tim.
he
He only
acted
does what
like,
the board
he
directs
acted
him.
like, oh, do we own a house? He like,
No, he knows. He knows well aware, Tim.
of course
But
he
won't-
did,
He
but
won't do anything without the will of the board, and if the board doesn't want to deal with it, he just, So if you want to put a letter together, be my guest.
Well,
can you
Joe,
handle
Joe,
that?
you and I can draft something up and we'll run it by the board.
Sure.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay, that brings us into the chairman's report, which is, I'm gonna draft a letter with Joe on Hillstown Road. So that'll be the extent of the chairman's report. There is no old business, there is no new business, which brings us to item 9, items for future agenda, which I can just quickly run down. We've discussed 3 of them, which are the dates for, actually it's 2021 public comment, dates for 2021 monthly board meetings, and dates for 2021 observed holidays. As Joe mentioned, we'll also have an update from Nathan Bonder regarding the RAD application and we're required to elect a vice chair every year. Apparently, the chair has a 3-year term, and I believe I have 1 more year on that term. So is there anything else anyone would like to see on a future agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to go into executive session for purposes of discussing an evaluation of the executive director. Is there a motion to go into executive session for that purpose?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Rubin.
Second,
Is there a second? Was that you, Tim?
yes.
Seconded by Mr. Becker. All in favor of going into executive session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It is 4-0. And the time is 7:45. So, we'll-
Everybody have a nice Thanksgiving.
You
yep,
too.
we'll
Thanks, Carol.
we'll take
Karen,
notes
same
for
to
you,
you.
I'll say the same thing and get out of your way.
Yep,
Okay.
take care, Boomer.
I'll see you, Boomer. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Tim, did you just call her Carol? I mean, I think.
Yeah, that was